guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. This is the third time of me trying to record this episode, as I did it, changed my mind, did it again, changed my mind. Now, this is the third time. Now, I have opened a can of Iron Brew given to me by my daughter for Father's Day. If you haven't had Iron Brew, it is a delicious Scottish soft drink that is apparently made from girders. It's warm here in the nation's capital today, so I'm not going to be having a cup of tea as I usually do. It might be later on this afternoon, but you never know. Anyway, as on last week, we did the top 5 Bruce Dickinson albums, solo albums. This week is the top 4 Rob Halford solo albums. Now, he's only actually technically had 4 solo albums. He's been with other bands, but not under the name Halford. So I didn't choose anything from Fight or 2. I'm sorry, Matt, my good friend Matt, was asking me if I was going to do stuff from Fight. I thought about it. I really did, and that's why I re-recorded it, because I did stuff with Fight, and I went, you know what? No, I didn't do it with Bruce. I might have mentioned Skunk Works last week, but really, truly, for me, Halford is just Halford. So we're going to do just his solo albums. Now, a quick potted history of Rob Halford. He's 72 years old. He's from Birmingham, up in the north of England, where all those Black Sabbath and all the great heavy metal bands are from. He joined the band early 70s to played sort of Led Zeppelin kind of sounding music, particularly Rock and Roller, the first album. But then they changed their tact and went and sort of moved towards the more heavy metal sound that we know now, creating the old leather and studs and whips and machismo that we're all used to. And those that don't know Rob Halford at all, where have you been living, firstly, and why are you, if you haven't heard him, please stop this now, pause it, go away, listen to all his stuff and come back. And you've done that? Good. Right. Now you know what I'm talking about. He is truly the metal god. He's called the metal god. He is the metal god. He adds the voice of metal. Him and Bruce Dickinson and Ozzy Osbourne are the voice of metal. They truly are. Falsetto, he's got every range, very high to very low, and he can hold it. He's got a scream that will go forever. He can pierce your eardrums with one note. He can draw you into the darkness with his bottom notes. He is truly one of the greatest vocalists of all time, if not ever, of any heavy metal genre, ever. Amen. I don't understand where he got voted 33 best vocalist in metal or something like that by some magazine 20 years ago. What planet were you living on? Obviously, these are youngsters and not people with any genuine knowledge. Sorry, I'm only joking, Nesmith. I'll get off my high horse. He's had a torrid time in his life. Addicted to substances and alcohol for quite a long time, until 1986, when one of his partners passed away. He decided he can't keep doing this, and he went clean. And he was taking the substances because to hide his dirty secret, as you might say, which is not a dirty secret. He was homosexual, and that's nothing to do with any of us, what proclivity his sexuality takes. But unfortunately, in his mind, he thought he would ruin the band, because heavy metal does have this, did have, and sometimes still does have this sort of machismo, women in tight clothes, men in tight jeans, heterosexual kind of vibe, which is all a load of bollocks. You know it, and we all know it. Unfortunately, he probably in his own mind couldn't get around to it. I'm sure the band knew it, even though he didn't know that. I'm sure they did. And to be honest, we must have all known. Look at he came out wearing leather and whips and looked like something from the Blue Oyster Bar in... Is it Blue Oyster? in Police Academy. Anyway, that aside, poor bugger. He now comes out, and well, good on him. Nothing changes. He doesn't suddenly start writing different music. There was a sense of freedom, I feel, once he lets go of that, because when the substances were cleared from his system, he sort of found religion a bit, and he's always a devout Christian anyway, raised that way as a young boy. And that's where I think he learnt to sing, was in the churches of the north of England post-war. And there was a sense of, when you listen to the latter albums, they're all amazing, but there seems to be a sense of release from him. You can almost feel it palpably, particularly in the solo albums, and particularly in his first couple of solo albums. He left the band in 1990 because he wanted to go and do a solo album, and the band were okay with it. They were like, yeah, of course you can, mate, why not? Who cares? You're going to enjoy yourself, get stuck in, mate. But the label that they were with said, no, if you want to leave, if you want to go a solo album, you're going to have to resign from the band. And well, there he goes. History is made. He leaves the band after Painkiller, which is, absolutely ripper of an album. And Ripper Owens comes in and joins on vocals. Sounds just like him, basically. And he goes off and makes several albums with a band called Fight. Now, I'm not mentioning, as I said before, those today because they're with a band called Fight. It's not under Halford. Brilliant albums that they are. Absolutely fantastic. They sound a lot like Pantera. There's a couple of really cracking songs. In fact, they're all bloody amazing, really. But then everything that he touches is gold. And we'll find that out later on with some quite incredible choices that he's made if you don't know his album catalogue. I personally came across Halford and Priest when I was about 8 years old. My brother and I were in Carnaby Street. At that time, the hippest place to be in London. All the punks and the mods and the skins hung out there, and Rasta stuff, and it was just wonderful. And we went there because the Great Frog was there, which is a jewellery store where Bruce Dickinson got his Eddie belt buckle made from the Power Slave tour. Is it Power Slave? Could be Peace of Mind. Anyway, doesn't matter. He got it made there, and they made some silver jewellery for horror movies and rings, and they made very popular the doll's eye ring. It's just like a glass doll's eye in a silver ring setting, which my brother went to buy, and he saved up for months to buy it because it cost a fortune, those things. And anyway, we came out from there, and there used to be this shop next to it, if anyone remembers, and all it was like 2 stories, and they just sold band shirts. It was like Mecca. It was heaven. And my brother went in and bought a Priest shirt, which was the British Steel album cover with the razor blades in the fingers, and with the extra blood, I remember, on it, which was fully amazing. And he bought one of those. You remember those 3D T-shirts that came out in the mid '80s, where it was like a white T-shirt with all ripped up, and underneath was a latex alien from the Aliens bursting out, all painted up to look like it's coming at your chest. Why the hell we thought we'd wear those? I mean, I had one. I had the chainsaw one where my chest had been ripped open by a chainsaw. I remember we took it home because it's so badly painted. My brother and I took it home and hand painted it afterwards and added silicone to make it look like it was all shiny and more gory. It was pretty fantastic, actually. Stupid, but fantastic. But that's where I first come across it. And I remember saying to my brother, Andrew, I said, hey, what's this band? And he'd had British Steel, and he said, look, I'm going to play it for you. And of course, I remember hearing on the radio Breaking the Law. I sort of remember it coming from Andrew's bedroom, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And it is an absolute cracker of an album. And the T-shirt, which will sadly no longer exist, I'm sure, became a dish rag somewhere in someone's hands. I mean, my mother famously would cut up any shirts that she thought were offensive that I would wear. All of a sudden there would be a hole in it. I remember having a t-shirt with a Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer t-shirt. No, it wasn't. That was the one I lost. Sorry. I had a Roger Melly, the Man from Telly, Viz comic character, one of my favourites. And he was giving a V sign, and underneath it said, fuck off. And I used to wear that at school. I got detention for wearing it at school, in fact. We used to smuggle copies of Viz around the school like they were pornography. When I think back at it now, oh my God, they were a fortune, the ones I had. Because I got them right from the early doors of Viz. If you don't know Viz comics, don't go into them if you don't have a puerile sense of humour, because there are characters like Buster Gonads and his feasibly large testicles, Fat Slags. There was a brilliant one, and it had a helpline, like a agony aunt kind of thing, or questions asked. And one of the questions was, I love it, and I remember I'll never forget it. He said, "Dear magazine, we bought my son a jigsaw for Christmas. When he went out of the room, we found out he plugged it in and cut all his fingers off." Sorry, guys. There was a weird jolt in the recording there because I laughed, hit the button, muted it, and spoke for another 5 minutes, realising that I had not been recording any sound. One of those days. Anyway, for those who don't know what a jigsaw is a power tool that used for cutting out shapes in wood, just in case you got confused. It's a play on words. Anyway, where was I going with all of this business? T-shirts. So yes, anyway, so it was an amazing t-shirt. Anyway, sorry about it. I got completely and utterly sidetracked because of this technology stopped me in my tracks. So that's my origin story with Rob Halford and Judas Priest. I didn't come back to them until a little bit later in life, probably around, I'm gonna say Painkiller. Maybe I think that's the one that really stuck in my head. Yeah. Or Defenders of the Faith. No, definitely no. I'd say probably Ram It Down and Painkiller, because that was when I was buying albums for myself and I was really finding my feet in the medium a little bit more. So I'd say Painkiller, of course, because of that amazing vocal on the lead track. Anyway, that's Halford, right? So he went off and did stuff with Fight, as I said, different kind of sound, streety kind of sound, Pantera-y kind of sound, and then some strange stuff with the band too, which we'll talk about another time. But then he releases his very first solo album, under his name in 2000. So quite some time after leaving the band before he actually, released one under his own name. But that's not going to be what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about in order. So 4 albums. In at 4, pop pickers. In at 4 is Halford 3 Winter Songs. Where do I begin with Halford 3 Winter Songs? As I said earlier, he's quite a Christian man now, and good on him. It gives him solace and gives him peace of mind. And he likes and loves Christmas. And like me, I don't know if you would know that, I love Christmas. I don't particularly care for the Christian story, but I just like the bright gaudiness of it and the togetherness and the family thing, right? That's it for me. It's just a moment of being together with all your family at once, if you're lucky, that is. And so this album is mainly metal versions of classic Christmas songs. There's Come All Ye Faithful, O Holy Night. There's We Three Kings, O Come Emmanuel. But then there's some other songs that he's written himself, like Get Into the Spirit, Christmas for Everyone, and Light of the World. And actually, those 3 songs on that album are really brilliant. They could be on any album of his, be a Christian Christmas-based album or a non-Christmas-based album. And before you shake your finger and say, is he just jumping on the bandwagon in December and releasing an album? No, I don't believe so. I really don't. I think that none of the songs he's writing here or he's singing along with are mimicking or mockery of the Christian story. He basically revering it. He's being a one with it. He's loving as I said in the last episode, if you listen to my Bruce Dickinson one, I particularly love Christian hymns, particularly British hymns, Church of England hymns. I think they're beautiful pieces of music and beautiful words and meanings. And I think that's the same here with Rob. He's not mocking them. He really is basically just giving it a bit of a jolt. He's just giving the old classics a bit of a zap up the arse. It's not the kind of album that you would be embarrassed to play to your nan. I personally think it's the kind of album where you go, if your mum and dad or your significant other or whichever says to you, hey, we want to put a Christmas album on, and you pull out Halford 3 winter songs, and they go, hang on, isn't that the geezer from Judas Priest? And you go, yes. You can't, but it's not going to be like Bad News or Motorhead, that all the Christmas songs. It really is a song you can actually put it on in the background while you're decorating your tree, and in fact I have been known to do that. So it's just a fantastic album. Yes, is it 4 because it's not the strongest of his solo albums. 3 tracks on it are wonderful. The rest are just nice versions of his favourite time of year, which is Christmas. Right, good on him. Right, so then we get to number 3. Now, number 3 for me is Crucible. Crucible came out in 2002. It's a very dark album. It's a very different sounding album. So he's gone when he went with, as I said, with Fight. He got a different sound, right? He got a more streety, gutter snipey kind of sound, and he sort of come back here with Crucible. Titles of tracks like Crucible, One World, Betrayal, Handing Out the Bullets, Heart of Darkness, Crystal, Golgotha, Wrath of God, Weaving Sorrow, Sun, and Trail of Tears. It runs for 56 minutes and 33 seconds, and it's not an album you put on to cheer yourself up with. Let's just be honest. It's not like I said before, Halford doesn't do things by halves. The music is what it is. It is a different sound for him. It's a little bit more grungy. It's a little bit more industrial, a bit more down-tuned. It had some real highlights. Golgotha is a highlight for me. I just absolutely love the chorus in it. The opening track, Crucible, is pretty fantastic. It has a little opening instrumental bit called Park. Oh, hang on. What have I written here? My handwriting. Bloody hell. 1 second. Got my eyesight. Park Manor. Anyway, it's a very retrospective album. It sort of sits. I think it's the. I don't know. I think for me, it's the. It's his. I think it's his winter album. You know, when I say winter, I mean like as in his last album, Winter Songs. I think it's his time to reflect. You know, he's always writing songs about machinery and positivity and getting on and fighting a good fight and being, soldiers in arms and, love and lust and all that sort of heart-pounding wonderfulness. But this is his long. This is what I would call his dark tea time of the soul, as Douglas Adams once beautifully penned. And it's not number one. It could be number one. I toyed with it because I really like artists that try to step outside of their comfort and to be different, like Bruce Dickinson. That's why I really loved Tattoo Millionaire. Well, firstly because it was one of the first albums I ever bought of his, but secondly it's just something so different to everything else he's done, and it felt like he was being true to what he wanted to do. And I feel this sort of happens a bit in Crucible, because Halford is not, he doesn't project a negative image, if you know what I mean. Everything he projects is positive. He comes out on stage and he's leather on his bike, he marches out, he's all metal, he's cut him through, and I reckon if you cut him in half he'd be steel. He is the personification of a metal god. He really is. And metal to me is a positive medium, a positive genre. Yeah, there are some negatives in this genre, of course there are, in your black metal and your death metal and all that sort of your doom and whatever, but in general, when it first burst out the gates, it was a positive message, a positive media feel, driving, fast, aggressive in not in its angry way, but aggressive is in its emotional way. And this album has, as I said, highlights like Golgotha, which I really love, and Crucible. And it doesn't hang around long. I mean, it's quite a short album. It doesn't seem to. You think because of its industrial, down-tuned tones that it would sound like it would linger, but it doesn't. It really just bubbles along and smacks you really hard right out from the gates. I said, try and get the original print. Don't listen to the new reissue that came out in 2010. I think because like all of his all albums I ever listened to, if you haven't listened to the album before and you go straight to a new version of it or a re-edited version of it, you're not getting what the artist gave you originally, rightly or wrongly. It's like Marillion released Clutching at Straws, which is one of my favourite albums of all time, as you all guys know, and they added in on the reissue a track called Going Under, which I absolutely loathe. I was discussing with John about this the other day, my mate John, as I mentioned before, and he loves Marillion as well, and he doesn't know the band that well as much as I do, and he just thought it worked on the album. But I bought the album in 1987 when it came out, and it wasn't on there, and I can't listen to it on there. It irks me. And it's the same with these new reissues now. They just put stuff on. What's wrong with just reissuing it? If you're going to reissue it, new packaging, maybe slightly cleaner, maybe a slightly different mix, but don't add more songs on or add different things. And if do that as a special edition, extra long version, but do release the original album as well, people. Please, labels, just release them as they go, so we can get the album again cleaner on a new medium. Fine, whether it's download, whether it's CD, whether it's vinyl, whatever bloody medium you want to put it on, just give us the original album that the band intended. That's what I want to hear. Anyway, that's my first two albums. I'm going to have a break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about albums, 2 to 1. Anyway, talk to you soon, guys. Bye for now. Welcome back, guys, to part 2 of Heavy Metal Tones. This episode of Rob Halford's 4 solo albums under his name, and we've done 4 to 3, which is probably no surprise, although Crucible could have gone in at number 1. It was a tough call for me. In at 2 is Halford 4. Now, this one could have been 1. Like I said, I struggle. I do love lists I'm a big fan of lists. I do them all the time in my head, write them down everywhere I go. I do like listing things. It's a male thing, I think. But this particular one, Halford 4, came out, I believe, in 2006. Let me just check that. Do you like my choral singing there? 2010. I apologise. And it is a cracker of an album. It's not dated, even though it's 13 years old. I listened to it again for the first time about a week ago. I hadn't listened to it for quite some time. Digged it out. I haven't got it on CD, so I digged it out on CD, put it on, and bloody hell, blow me down if this is not one of those albums where you go, why have I not been listening to this a lot more than I should have? Again, hunt down the original one, please. If there's long extended prints, try and find the original one. Yes, it might not be as a sound as clean as you young millennials like to hear, but it's as how as it should be. It has a brilliant set list. We've got Undisputed, Fire and Ice, Made of Metal, Speed of Sound, Like There's No Tomorrow, Till the Day I Die, We Own the Night, Heartless, Hellraiser, Thunder and Lightning, 25 Years, Matador, I Know We Stand a Chance, and The Mover, yes. I'm going to pick out some songs here. I won't go for each one of them because it's going to be a longer episode if I do that. I'm just going to pick out, firstly, the concept of the album is basically, I think, is man and machine. It's the speed, the engine, the leather, the tarmac, the wheel, the rubber, everything machismo, basically, is what I feel. I mean, the giveaway is the covers. The album's got a car on it, and he does mention NASCAR a few times. So, because he does live in England and in America. I find NASCAR quite frustrating. It's because it is one of the not a big motorsports person anyway, but one of the most watched sports in the world, and the car just goes around in circles. But anyway, I don't want to offend my American listeners, but I'm only being silly, guys. Undisputed, which is obviously, the lyric sounds like he's talking about a boxer, because it, most times you hear the word undisputed, you put it with boxing, but it could also be with sports, most sports, I suppose. I've written one word, brilliant. The lyric is so sing-along, it's so Halfordy, it's so metally, it's so stadium, but also not. I don't know how to describe it. I just think there's a lot of, with Halford's later albums, a lot of this is a more technical guitar thing, I suppose, but a lot more palm muted, sort of down picking. It's very thrashy, but in a sedate way, but without being sedate, if that makes sense. And then you get Fire and Ice. It's just about, it feels like it's about speed and sexuality. It really does. It feels like it's about, now, Rob might not mean this, and this is how I felt it. This is what I get from it. I think it's a little bit post-coital, if you know what I mean. The cigarette after the moment, if that's your proclivity. The cold sweat on the back as you try to realize that the moment is gone. That, all right, that's what I feel Fire and Ice is about. And then you get Speed of Sound. All right, Speed of Sound, again, it's about cars, isn't it? That's what it feels like. It's about it could be about the Bluebird and the fastest car on the planet, it could be about that, but I don't know really. But then I really, really love the mammoth all the sound you get with Like There's No Tomorrow. It is big. it is a big album, a big sound, people. It fills your stereo and your speakers and your head. There's no room to think when this thing's on. It's almost like it pushes your everything out, and all you've got is wall-to-wall distortion, down-tuned, thunderous, palm-muted guitar, and a wailing Halford. It is just stupendous. And then, we got a few, like you got Heartless, which is a wonderful, sing-along piece of music. Really spatial, really full of space for you to get your head around the lyric, really enough time for you to get that singing out. And then Hellraiser, which is very much a trope of Halford's, it's two words he's used quite a lot in the past. That's not to disparage it, it just is. But the one I want to talk about is 25 Years, which is sort of a ballady track. He does a few ballads, does our Rob. Not as much as latter stage Osborne, but there's a few. And this one's really significant, I think. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, he quit abuse, alcohol abuse and substance abuse in 1986, and he has said quite openly that many times he struggled trying to, the thought of having a JD or Jack Daniels or a cheeky line or something. He struggled with the thought of wanting to do it. He really wants to do it, because as with all addictions, they don't go away. Right? They're always somewhere deep down in your subconscious, whether you've thought you've beaten them or not. They're there. And the song 25 Years, I think, if you think about it, so this album was 2010, didn't I say? 86, 96, 2006. So, I mean, yes, it's close to it, isn't it? Like, that'll be 2011 for that. It would be 25 years since he quit. And this song, I feel, listening to the lyric, really emotes that feeling, and it's a beautiful song. You can feel the sadness what he did when he was under the influence. The people who he lost, the people that he forgot, and the moments in his life that don't exist anymore because they were blurred by alcohol and by addiction of chemicals. It's beautiful. They just underline that and say that. That's all you have to say about this particular track. It's just beautiful. And I must admit, I got to it and I listened to it maybe 3, maybe 4 times while I was walking up the road from the cafe early this morning. And it just gave me goosebumps, because we've all had those moments. We're still having those moments where we've done something, we've regretted it. Not so publicly, unfortunately, as say maybe Rob has, and Ozzy has, and a lot of people have. But he survived it. It didn't kill him. He's 72 and he's still rocking, still loves looking after his little cats. He still as crazy as a cut snake, and he's still got rock and roll pumping through his veins and steel in his heart, right? And he hasn't lost his voice, and that's the thing, isn't it? Even after the 2 latest solo albums, the latest Priest albums, That Will Cry and God, hang on, see, old man. Excuse me, while I reach the sky note. That Will Cry and Firepower. That's right. Sorry, he hasn't lost his voice. That's a side note. So let's get down to number 1. Because that could be number 1 again. These are very tricky to do, coming in these top 5s. Because you might go, no, I think Crucible should be number 1. The obvious one that I'm putting here at number 1 is quite obvious. It is his first solo album. It is Resurrection. And it's my favourite solo album for one track that really, for me, stands out. Now, you're going to say, Tony, that's bloody obvious, Tone. And I'm going to say, yes, it is bloody obvious. but it's the track that he wrote and sang with, Bruce Dickinson. Yes, he did. It's an absolute stonker of a song. The one you love to hate is the song with those two singing. And can you imagine you're in a studio, right? And you've come into work, and you're ready to go and record and mix this song, and you think, oh, okay. Oh, what am I looking down? You look down on the paper and it says Rob Halford, Bruce Dickinson. You just, I don't know. I would be ever so slightly clenched. Yes, you wouldn't get a Christmas card between my cheeks. I'd be that clenched with fear that I was going to get this right, because this is behemoth of a connection of two singers, right? And it works so well. I mean, I don't think I'd get any work done. They'd be singing, I'd just be staring, and they'd be going, "Are you moving the knobs up and down?" And I'd be like, "What? The mechanical piano? No, I wouldn't be doing it. Would I? I'd be, oh shit, mixing, matching, whatever they do in the studio." It took 2 years to record this album, released in 2000. As I said, quite some time after leaving the band. This is his first real true solo album. It's got a very Killing Joke sounding guitars on this. And those that know me know I love Killing Joke, and it has a very Geordie-esque Pandemonium sound. If you listen to Pandemonium and then listen to the guitars on this. Now, Pandemonium came out afterwards, so you could say that they were influenced by this. No, sorry, Pandemonium came out before. 94 it came out. So you might say that it was influenced, but I doubt it, to be honest with you. It's a lot of Halford's lyrics on this album are very like Bruce Dickinson's first solo album. It's almost like he's just letting go. He's just being different. He's come back to his heavy metal roots. So he's not street metal anymore, not Pantera, not hard-edged American metal. He's come back to that sort of leather and denim and leather, Nawabum classic heavy metal sound that we all love. And, it does have a little bit of its... a little bit of innuendo in there, because sometimes Halford can be a little bit Kenneth Williams. For those who don't know Kenneth Williams out there and are now frantically Googling him, he was a British comedian of the 60s and 70s and 80s actually. It was played in the Carry On movies, very, very camp, very innuendo, very Seaside Postcard, which is what Britain comedy is basically based around. And I feel Halford has that in him as well. I can imagine him as a young man going to see Carry On Doctor or Carry On Nurse, and just being enthralled with its silliness. And I think sometimes on this album you get that. Songs like Locked and Loaded, Made in Hell, Slow Down, Twist is a weird one. I don't quite get my head around that one. Temptation, Dive, and Saviour. Again, there is only one available option to listen to this on Spotify that I know about, although other streaming platforms are available. And it's all the extended stuff on it. And it just didn't work. I want to hear Resurrection as it's meant to be. And obviously Resurrection is a good name because he's resurrecting himself from the ashes of Priest. Even though it was 10 years later, it's still an absolute corker of an album. It doesn't date. It isn't dated. It has its sort of innuendo-y British kind of sound. It has a very stable guitarish riff-based music. It's very Priesty. it gets your pulse racing. Basically, it does everything that you want from heavy metal, right? It moves along fast, doesn't hang around. It's not trying to preach to you. It's full of innuendo, as I said before. It's full of machismo, imagery of war, imagery of bravery, heroism, love. It has everything in it. That's what makes this medium wonderful, and why that Halford is sort of at the peak and pinnacle of it. Up there on the hill with Bruce and Ozzy looking down at the rest of us. And it's just he didn't change course with his solo albums. The only time he changed course is when he went and did some Christmassy stuff in as I said, Winter Nights, right? But apart from that, he really does hold the flame. And this album, even though it took 10 years to record release after he left Priest, it still for me feels like it came straight out of 1990. It's the same way that if you were playing this with Tattooed Millionaire back to back, you'd go, this must have been released at the same time. It has that feel. It has a 90s kind of mix and a kind of finish, although it does have that awful, sometimes not awful, it's the wrong word, annoying 2000s CD mix, where it's the volume is too high and they want to squeeze too much on because they can. I've talked about this before. I find it infuriating that because the medium could do it, that means they did do it. Metal at that time, particularly in the early 90s to mid 90s, was dying. It was on its knees. We were subjected to grunge for so long that I think we sort of, and then of course came nu metal as we, and Halford's done stuff with nu metal material. Let's not take away from it. He likes everything that's fast, heavy, and hard. Mrs., as I'd like to say. But yes, that's it for me. Number one, definitely Resurrection, because it's just the one I like, because it has the most fun. It has the Bruce Dickinson duo on it with it. That's worth the entrance fee and the album price alone, in my opinion. It did come out as a single, but that for me is worth the album alone. It really does. I sort of put the album on and I holding back to wait for that single to come in, which is a beautiful thing because you can't wait, but at the same time you should be enjoying the whole album as a whole. But I can't wait for that one to come. So that's my top four. Honourable mention. If you really want to have a listen to, if you really want to listen to an album he recorded with Fight, I'm gonna say War of Words for 1993. It is a pretty epic album. It's got Scott Travis on drums. That's with Priest now, an amazing drummer. It does that thrash groove, Pantera sound. It's a little bit, I love it, but I don't love it at the same time. But if you want a song of it that really grabs you, the one that grabs me the most, to be fair, is Immortal Sin. It really grabbed me, that song. It's an absolute cracker of a song. Nailed to the Gun and Into the Pit, the first two tracks off the album, really good openers. And even Kill It and Vicious towards the end are pretty good. They don't hang around too long. They're 4-minute, 3-minute songs. That's what Priest does well, apart from something like Nostradamus, where there were long tracks. It doesn't hang around too much. Anyway, that's me for this particular week. I hope you've enjoyed my chat. Sorry about the strange edit halfway through. If you don't hear it, I'm going to try and hide it out. I cannot believe I did that, though. Or actually, I can believe it, because that's the sort of thing that I do well. It's because I've got this cough button on it, and I was trying to Sorry, I'm trying to get back into my computer. I was trying to cover my really loud outbursts of laughter and stupidity. I pressed the wrong button. Anywho, next week we're coming into October, so we'll start a few episodes that are based around the ghoulishness and Halloweenishness of October. There might be a hint there for you in the name. I won't say any more because I am really looking forward to this one, as it's one of a band that we don't talk about very much, but has produced some absolute crackers, a lot of history behind them. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a teaser for next week. Bye for now. Keep safe, keep rocking, and just listen to as much Priest and Halford as you can get. And you know what? Even if it's October, bang on the Christmas album, sod it. It makes me smile. I'm sure it'll make you smile. Rock and roll, guys. Bye for now.